Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Kim Sulga. I am a professor of theatre studies at Western University, which is located in the colonial city of London, Ontario, in the land that is sometimes known as Canada. This wonderful event, which will begin very shortly, is part of a class that I teach called Toronto, or Toronto, Culture and Performance at Western University. And I want to extend a special welcome to my students who are in the webinar this evening, and two of them whom I'll introduce later who are going to be helping with the Q&A. I want to say very briefly that Western University is located on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Lenape, and Adirondack peoples, and also that it is part of the territories that are covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Covenant, which is a peace treaty between Indigenous nations that really asks that we think carefully about sharing our resources, because we all eat from the same dish with the same spoon, and that I think makes a really fantastic model for the ways in which we can all activate our acknowledgements of the land and think carefully about what it means to hold all of the people who share it equitably, fairly, and to recognize the diverse needs that we all come to the table with. Really don't want to take any more time because we've got a really wonderful piece of performance to watch, and Yloanda Bommell, the co-creator and performer that you're going to see, has some protocols that she will be offering before the performance gets underway. So without further ado, welcome to Yloanda.
Miigwech, miigwech for having me. Ni bojo Yolanda Dishkas Manga Nindigo Jibwemang Makwanindodam, Fort William First Nation Ndonjaba Dagarondoninda. Hello, my name is Yloanda Bommell. My spirit name is Circling Wolf. I'm Bear Clan. I'm a queer two-spirit Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and South Asian mixed performer, playwright, and multidisciplinary creator and educator. I'm originally from Fort William First Nation, which is Superior Robinson Treaty Territory, but myself and my arts practice are now based here in Degarondo. My pronouns are she and they, and I am the co-artistic leader of Manadoon's collective that I started with Michif artist Cole Alves, who is unable to be with us today, but I am the playwright and performer of Bug, and in Bug. Unfortunately, Jay Havens was also unable to join us tonight, but we do have a beautiful, wonderful Quay here in his stead. So I'm going to throw it now to my sister Ashley, who has had many roles with us. She's been our stage manager, our cultural keeper, an outside eye, and a huge rock of generous support and love. And she's going to be with us tonight with me, and I'm so excited. Ashley, it's up to you.
Thank you, Yolanda, for a beautiful, beautiful words. I'm grateful for this opportunity. My heart is with Jay Havens and the Havens family during a difficult time that no one foresaw, but we're here. We're here for each other. We're here together, and this is what family does, you know. And the second I knew that Jay might not need to be here.
Yeah.
I just said, hey cousin, can I do a thing? And so I'm here doing a thing. And Yolanda, you are family. We're not blood related in any way, but you are family. So I'm very grateful to be here. I am Mohawk from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. I have worked in so many capacities throughout this puny little ant life that I am. But yeah, I've done it all. You name it, I've done it. And have a lot to share. Yeah, and grateful to share.
Me quit. Well, I'm so happy that you're here with me today because I can't think of anyone else I'd rather be with. I want to say that for this recording, we encourage the use of headphones just to experience the optimum sound from our sound designer, Maddie Bautista. So yeah, just for a better sound experience, we highly recommend headphones. So typically we would give these speeches in the space in a theater while all of the witnesses are in a circle, which you'll see in the video. And we would each be standing in the 4 doorways, whoever was with us that night. And part of what we do, which was inspired by Coast Salish playwright Kim Senclip Harvey, is to presence any Indigenous women in the audience. So at this time, I want to give a great big bonjour welcome to all of the Indigenous women, which always includes trans women, our matriarchs and femmes, and two-spirited folks, as well as our kin who identify as non-binary. You are important, and we say Chi-miigwech for being here and for your presence tonight. It's really important. So miigwech. And I'm going to throw back to Ashley to talk about our water and land defenders.
Ooh. Yep. Yep. I did not pull up that document.
Okay, I got it. Well, do you want to say a little bit about?
Yeah, no, I can speak about it,
Yeah.
but like if you want to shoot it to me or
Yeah,
whatever.
I have the donation information here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, water protectors, land defenders, like we are all one and the same. And we've sisters are doing it for themselves. um, but like no, it's everything and it's everyone, and it's like the young and the old. Like I've seen children, like babies are being born and raised, on territory that is unceded territory.
Yeah.
That the police are physically violent about taking back. And it's just like, no, this is land back.
Yeah.
This is land back lane. Like this is the land that we've always had. And how dare you? How dare you? But yeah, we're doing certain things, and it's very important. And it's very important for people who maybe don't identify as Indigenous to coalesce, like come on side and just say like, yep, we're settlers, but we got your back. And yeah, it's needed. Like no voice is unheard.
Yeah.
Indigenous
Absolutely.
voices go unheard, but it's when the non-Indigenous voices speak up, that's when we're heard.
Yeah.
So please, yep, we need each other.
Yeah, absolutely. We've listed some donation links that you can donate to if you find it in your ability or capacity to donate. We've dropped a couple of links there for you. So yeah, it's the youth that are doing the good work out there, man. They're so young, it's wild.
Yep.
So also one of the things that's really important for us is to make sure that everyone understands that if you are watching, the work does bring up some hard truths, and so it might be difficult, especially if you are Indigenous, to witness this story. And so we recognize the importance of that. And so whenever we do present the show, we often have a healer present. Obviously, it's a little bit different this time around virtually, but we do want to bring up Atlosa Healing Services. So if you are feeling triggered or in distress by anything that you are witnessing, you can call them at 1-800-605-7477. Or alternatively, you can visit the website atlohsa.com. Atlosa is is the local healing service. So if you do feel like you need some help, please feel free to reach out to them. And we'll have healers there for you to talk to. And I'm going to throw it back to Ashley to talk about the Q&A.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that, like, I have seen the show probably like 100
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah. But every single time that I've seen it, I cry. So there is no shame in calling for help. Um, we need what we need, and sometimes we heal through art, and that's, I think, the beautiful, poignant piece of this show. It is so beautiful. It is funny, it's beautiful, it's funny. Like, you find yourself in this show, and also you're gonna cry. I'm sorry, you're gonna cry. I, like, in one of the last shows that I saw, there was a man sitting next to me, and he was just bawling, and his girlfriend didn't know how to take care of him, and I was just like, I just put my hand on his shoulder and was like, it's gonna be okay. And yeah, that's me to a stranger, because I've seen the show like 100 times.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay. Right, guys?
It is gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. It's always gonna be. I think that representation is always a tricky thing, right? Because sometimes it can bring up our truths that are hard to feel represented by. So yes, please use the healing services if you need to. And also know that there is a Q&A after the show. So please stick around. Ashley and I will be back, and we'll field some questions. And so please have some questions ready, and or comments or anything, and we'll do our best to field them. So stick around after the show. And so lastly, I just want to bring up that so we were gifted a creation story by our elder Pauline Shirt, who, when she saw the show, or when she was there for a rehearsal, I think, and she experienced the show, and the first thing she started to talk about was the story about how the bugs and the creatures made way for the Anishinaabe people. And so it was a beautiful creation story that she gifted us, that I was, with permission, was allowed to turn into our prologue. So it's a little bit of a prologue before the show, and also is a land acknowledgement in our ways. And so I'm gonna ask Ashley to read our creation story, and then you can enjoy the show. So miigwech for being here, and here's Ashley Bombberry.
Thank you so much for throwing it back to me, and I'm sorry that I derailed a little bit.
No, this is what we do.
Yeah. Oh, tell me.
We're hanging out, we're chatting.
Us over coffee. Imagine. I'm finding a thing that you sent me a long time ago. Oh, goodness. I found Mariah Carey.
That's always fun.
I'm better than this.
I can send it again.
Sure. Sorry.
Sorry. It's all good.
Yeah, no.
We have to have, and these are the times that we need, like, we need ultimate patience with everyone. We need compassion. We need care. I talk about this a lot in the work that I do in general, but also like just for myself, and making space for care and making room for compassion. I think it's incredibly important. So, we don't, I don't function, I try really hard not to function through colonial standards. And so, if that means taking some trickster energy at work, yes, exactly. That's great. That's exactly it. Yeah, trickster energy at work.
Yep.
Throwing
Yeah,
a wrench.
no, I like honestly, like things go missing in my apartment. I'm just like, why? What
Yeah.
is the thing that I know that I always place it? Why is that thing missing? Oh, little people. Cool.
Yeah, little, yeah, mimic Wheezy. Do you
Uh,
have this? Do you have it?
yeah, I have it. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Not the
And so
little.
once again, Ashley Bomberry.
Now, sister. Um, Miigwechkwe. Uh, okay. Thousands of years ago, prior to human activity here on what we call Turtle Island, there was a gathering. This gathering was made up of the smallest insects and the largest animals who put aside their many differences to discuss what was being foretold in the winds. From the bee and the spider to the buffalo and bears, these creatures traveled from across the land and gathered at a great lake. It was there that it was there they discussed the coming of the Anishinaabe people, humans who would be protectors of the lands and waters and all living beings in the cycle of life. The creatures agreed that they would make way for our people. They would ensure the Anishinaabe people would have food and lodging and being taken care of, that we were all to take care of each other. And so the humans arrived and lived with the land. Different tribes and nations began to cover Turtle Island alongside the Mississaugas and other Anishinaabe, were the Haudenosaunee people, the Wendat, and many other nations, some we may not even know about. Our people recognized that we are a part of the life cycle. We are no different than the grass we walk on, the water we drink, or the animals that we hunt. The cycle is what feeds and takes care of us, enables us to feed and take care of each other.
Yolanda, thank you so much for sharing this incredible piece of work with all of us. We're going to move into a Q&A. Thank you for the claps in the chat. Please feel free to continue clapping. Zoom claps are so weird, but so
I know. It's always so strange. Like, how do you express the same way, that
yes.
of appreciation?
And in
Yeah, I get
webinars,
it.
you can't even do jazz hands in webinars.
I know.
Oh my goodness. We're going to move into the Q&A. Just a couple of notes from me. I want to acknowledge the folks in the panel space with us, in addition to Yolanda and Ashley. We've got Azadeh Odlin and Andy Laviolette representing our class, as well as Abhimanyu Acharya, who is our very brave teaching assistant who usually takes on all of the tech. And I also want to, before I forget, and while folks are still all with us, send a very big thanks to Melissa Parker and Josh Lambier for their help with the webinar. If you have questions for Yolanda and Ashley, please put them in the Q&A icon thing space on your webinar screen. Azde, Andy, Ibeen, and I will be working the Q&A to make sure that we get your questions, as many of your questions as possible. We are in the spirit of giving 2 fingers up to colonial time. We're going to drift past 7 p.m. as needed with Yolanda and Ashley's permission, and I thank them very much. Of course, at the same time, if you need to go, because we know that many of you are joining us from far and wide, and if you're in my class and you need to go, because I know that we end at 7 and we end at 7, that is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We are recording, and with Yolanda Ashley's permission, we'll share the Q&A with our students so that folks are able to hear what questions and answers were offered. I am going to start us off, and I'm also going to invite the other, I completely forgot Pauline Wakeham, that you're also a panelist here in the panel room, Dr. Wakeham, who's our specialist in Indigenous literatures, one of our specialists in Indigenous literatures here at Western. I'm so grateful for your presence. I'm going to kick us off, Yolanda, just because I was so moved during the performance by the work of it. I mentioned to you in our private panelist chat that my body would react to your body as the body reacted to the Manitous overtaking it. And I wondered if you could reflect a little bit on not just the work of creating and putting the show together, but also the labor it takes to perform it, perhaps how you honor your body and its needs in the process, and also maybe and perhaps both you and Ashley would like to speak to this, the labor of spectating and the toll that this show can take on Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit observers, and perhaps also the labor that you might wish that it could take or maybe not extract from, maybe extract from, invite settler audience members to undertake.
That was a lot of, okay. That is a lot of questions in one. I'll see if I can remember. Okay. Yes. Miigwech for that. Yeah, I think that the physical response makes sense to me. I've sort of always been drawn to physical theater, or physical embodiment in theater, physical storytelling. I think that so much of our truths are held in our body, in ways of muscle memory, intergenerational memory, blood memory. And so I'm really drawn to that as a mechanism to tell stories. And yeah, I was trained in a physical theater school. And so I have a lot of training that helps me to keep my body safe, and when I'm creating, how to, like, the best means of communication through my body. I was so fortunate to work with Aria Evans, who is an Afro-Indigenous choreographer and dancer. And so she was my movement coach for the last, 5 years, I think, that we've been doing the show. And so she has always brought in these incredible safety measures that made sure that I was physically keeping my body safe with any choices that I was making in terms of, like, the dropping down onto the ground and, like, the rolling. So making sure that the mechanics of my body was supported. And Ashley and I both had a great time working with Aria. She's our sister, and it was really great to for her to give us, like, different, like, movement sequences and stuff. Witnessing response. Yeah, I mean, Ashley stated earlier that she has seen the show so many times, and that it still gets to her. And yeah, like I said, like, it's our truths are, can be difficult to witness and experience. And I feel like as a holder of stories, or space, if I'm inviting somebody in to witness my work, it's my responsibility to care for those witnesses. I think that as storytellers, that is our responsibility. And so, whatever ways I we can put those measures into place. It's quite important. And that, one big focus that I'm trying to move towards is making sure that stories have an element of healing in them, or like to show healing and show our joys and our loves and our passions, that Indigenous people, in particular our women, are more than just our traumas. And so while that is a part of our truth, we hold so much more inside of ourselves. And so it's always important to me, when particularly when Indigenous women or Two-Spirit folks are in the audience or witnessing, because I create for us, I create so that we can see ourselves in spaces and see our stories on platforms, because often our stories aren't told, and often or they're told through a white lens. And if we're going to talk about our hardships and we're going to talk about our pain, then it needs to be us talking about it and not through a lens that's not our own. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You answered everything.
Great.
Perfect.
And if I can,
oh, of course, Ashley, I'm so sorry. Yes, please come in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, if I can piggyback on that. Yeah, thank you, Yolanda. I, didn't think that I needed to watch the show, but also, like, because I've seen it so many times, but also I watched it. And it was incredibly beautiful. And, I'm missing the moments where I'm hearing the audience,
Yeah.
like their gasps or their cries or their laughter,
Yeah.
And maybe
that's how I felt performing it. It's like, hey, nobody? Okay, cool. Thanks, ancestors.
yeah, no, basically it would be mostly me. um yeah, but it still invoked so many emotional um responses, um spiritually, um and emotionally. Like I was there 1000%. And yeah, I think it's a very powerful show. Um, and thank you so much for putting your heart and soul on the ground physically and spiritually. Um, those slams on the rock, I can't. Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Yeah. We named our rocks.
Oh my goodness. Thank you very much, Ashley. And I think if there's one thing that this really extremely well done, theater researchers everywhere, thank you for the well doneness of this video. If there's one thing there's two things we can learn from it. It's number one, that a beautifully done archive video is gold, but also that it is no substitute for the experience of being live in the moment, embodied with audiences reacting in their body to
Yeah.
you. So I really thank you for that paradox as well. Could I invite anyone who's here in the panel space, if they have a question to offer, or if there is a question from the chat that they would like to uplift at this moment? Andy.
Yes. Let me find it here. Someone in the chat here asked, how did you come to choose and in the round layout for this performance? Was having the audience to be able to see other audience members across the stage a factor?
What? Sorry?
I just wanted to say thank you to Alexandra for that question.
Thank you, Alexander. I'm glad. Seeing other audience members was not the intention initially, but it definitely, I think, played a part later. My initial need for it to be in the round was for so many reasons. Circles are a huge part of Anishinaabe culture. A lot of Indigenous nations incorporate circles or cycles. They're just a part of our culture, and we look at it when we think of the medicine wheel and the four corners and our four medicines. So the circle means quite a bit, and for me, the oral tradition of storytelling, was in circles often. When we gather in circles, and so for me, it was important when talking about the ceremonial aspect of this story, that the witnesses are a part of that ceremony, like deeply a part of it. And so the last iteration that we did, I stood and invited everybody into the space and showed people to their seats. And the idea was that, it's not, it's, yes, it's a theater show in terms of like the way that we're looking at the institution of theater. But in my work, I'm actively trying to sort of dismantle what that means when it comes to colonialism and capitalism and within our stories. And so that included how we interact with witnesses in the space. And so, we tell them off the top that they can keep their phones on. They're allowed to leave the space and come back in. It's really about just giving them autonomy. And yes, so in the circle, especially in the inner circle, you're a part of the show. I essentially cast you in the show. And I interact with everybody. I'm up in their faces, which we clearly can't do now. But it was something that was really important to me, to be able to have intimacy with my witnesses, and they played a part of keeping me safe. It was a circle of safety. I felt held by those witnesses every night. In this case, in the video, we made sure that there was medicine on the chairs, so that we were intentionally calling in ancestors to be present to witness. So there were witnesses, we just couldn't see them. And yeah, so that's really a part. And I think the seeing other witnesses became a part of it in that sort of interactive way where you feed off of the energy that's being created, right? The ceremony that's being created. And so, and to recognize that we're all there together and that we're all holding each other.
Thank you so much. Abby, I saw that you showed your face. Did you have a question?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to pump up somebody's question in the chat, which is about integration of choreography with the text.
Okay.
And what was the artistic process behind that? I think 2 people have asked it, so I thought we can take it up.
Folks are very interested in the dance narrative.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm so interested in body storytelling and physical embodiment and physical theater. And so for me, I really wanted to tell the story with this text and movement integration. And in physical theater, often that's sort of the way that stories are told. And I love poetry because it allows access to different forms of representation, that people can look at metaphor and find themselves in it somewhere, and not everybody's going to find the same thing. And I think that's what's beautiful about it. And so for me, when I layer the text and movement together, there's an opportunity for instance, for the text to be saying something that the movement isn't, or vice versa, that the body is expressing something that the text isn't able to. So I kind of look at it like the way that we sort of see musicals, right? When emotion becomes so much that you're overwhelmed, you burst into song, and that's the only way I can express it. And then the next is like I'm dancing, and now I'm singing and dancing, and I'm expressing myself in song and dance. And so for me, I look at it the same way. When things become too tough, she begins to speak in metaphor, and when that becomes too tough, then it becomes out through her body, and then it becomes this symphony of expression, right? So it follows the same sort of way of heightened emotion, and the way of expressing heightened emotion that is that is outside the realm of us just like speaking and talking, so that it's a way of showing something that again other people can find access to, or maybe they find themselves in a gesture rather than the text, or they find themselves in the text rather than the gesture. One thing I noticed was when the reviews came out from the Indigenous women that did the reviews last winter. They picked up on this gesture as the scoop, as a 60 scoop gesture, which I was, it meant so much to me that she said that, because that's exactly what it was, and without being so literal, and yet at the same time being literal. That's what I mean by like these gestures and movements of being able to find access points in this, because not everybody's going to see that, right? But yeah, so it was really just I would take like a piece of text, or like a line or a theme from a text that I wrote, and then I would create movement scores to that text, and then I would marry them together. And so in the process of putting them together, if I found, okay, this word doesn't work here anymore, then I can cut that word and just use my body. And when do I need my body over the text, and when do I need my text over the body? And that was really the process of that creation.
Yolanda,
Yeah.
that is one of the most concise and most beautiful statements I've ever heard in my life. um, so thank you for that. Thank you for rocking my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, here all day. But like also, like I've been in the rehearsal room with you, you know,
Yeah.
and I was worried about your body.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, throwing yourself on rocks and just like, um, what are ways that you protect yourself um in spaces um that you're meant to like communicate um non-verbally?
Mm. That's a great question. I think I think part of that comes from my training of of most of my theater school training was breathing. We spent the first half of the year just learning how to breathe properly, um, and breathing and grounding. And grounding as a performer, if anyone as a performer knows that being grounded is one of the most important things. If you're not grounded, you can get easily thrown off your center emotionally or physically. And being able to like root down and ground into the earth. And I think really, my whole warm up process is part of that. But also like the very opening of with the circling where Sadie Buck is reading the poem. There's a grounding that happens there that doesn't happen anywhere else, that allows me to sink into the story, and then I'm ready. So then my body is physically ready to handle those sort of drops and those quick rolls and the physical demands, because I'm warmed up physically and I'm grounding myself, so that like I know when a drop is coming, so I'm able to put my body in the right position, so that when I am dropping or throwing myself or doing any of the things, that I'm completely safe and none of it hurts at all. My body might be a little bit pain afterwards, like an hour after I've gone home, and I'm like icing my knees and stuff, because I am 39 and I do have joint problems. But yeah, during the performance, I'm completely safe, and I have all the things in place that make sure that I'm physically taken care of.
Yolanda, I just
Yeah.
wanted to thank you for this beautiful story. You're a beautiful storyteller, and your story was touching and beautiful. A lot of us on the chat, I'm checking this, and this is my question as well. Rebecca asked, can you share the story of making this a story? Also, how do you maintain your energy throughout this? And I think you touched on that. Can you just run a marathon? Like you just ran a marathon in this play. So if you can answer that
Yeah,
question.
I'll quickly mention the energy thing first. I think that it's adrenaline mostly. um, uh, my adrenaline is pumping when I start this show, and it always is so faster than I think. Like half the time, I'm like near the end of the play, and I'm like, how did I get here? Like I remember every moment because I'm in every moment, but I'm like, wow, that happened so fast. So I don't think I think about it too much. I think about it a lot beforehand. I know I'm about to like run a marathon. I know I'm about to do this thing, right? But there, Cole was really great. Cole Alvis, the director, was really great in helping me find moments of stillness and breath, which allowed me to stop for a moment, catch myself, and then keep going. So being able, the trick was being able to do that while keeping the ball in the air the whole time, right? Like as a performer, you're like, okay, I've got to keep this up. I got to keep it somewhere up here. Otherwise, if it drops, then we can all feel it drop. So it was keeping the energy up, but breathing down and then keeping going forward. So it was really like it was really more like water. It was like ebb and flow, right? Like, cause it needs to keep going. The story came, in school. Every year we did what is now known as a creation project. And in our third year, we were able to write a 15-minute piece on our own. And I actually the story actually came to me in first year. I was walking to school and I saw a bug crossing the sidewalk, and I had a whole thought process of like, does that bug know that I could step on it? Like, how aware of it is of its surroundings? And I think about people who step on bugs on purpose, and like the way that the fear and the treatment of these tiny little insects. And the it wasn't lost on me that treatment of bugs is similar to the treatment of, I mean, Indigenous people in general, particularly Indigenous people who suffer from addictions due to colonial violence and intergenerational trauma. Systemic racism is very real, and we can see the effects that it has on Indigenous people in this country, on Turtle Island in general, and in particular Indigenous women, and in particular houseless Indigenous women, in particular houseless Indigenous women that have addictions. So like those, I think about, I'm from Thunder Bay, which like the amount of racism that happens in that city is off the charts. And so I don't know if all of that was in me when I saw that little bug. I just knew that there was something that needed to be told. And I began to tell the story. I knew that I wanted a physical manifestation of addiction and trauma. And that's how Manadunes, the bug, came along, the creature. And I knew how I wanted that text to be. And then it just sort of spiraled from there. The story came out about this girl. I used some mix of my own experiences growing up on the res, and my sister's experiences, what they went through, and the other women in my family, to sort of piece it together. And it had all kinds of different iterations. Like it went from 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 25 to 30 to like, so like it's been through the ringer. I mean, I've been working on this piece since 2013. So it wasn't until I'd say like 2019 where I actually stopped writing it. And I was like, we're not writing it anymore. Yeah. And so it just took a time to piece that story together and to really channel and allow these women's voices to come through, especially the mothers. The mother wasn't added until a year after I did with Sagachak, the festival from Native Earth. I added the mother character, and her voice just came to me. She just came to me. I just knew her. I know her. I think, and a lot of people who grow up in large Indigenous populated areas or reserves know this woman too. Like we know her. She's an auntie. We see her a lot. So Yeah, miigwech.
Andy, I know you've got a question that you've been
Yeah,
asked.
this will probably answer somebody else's question as well that they've asked. So it kind of crosses over. So um, somebody has asked about a significance of the insect slash bug character repeating in certain words.
Mm.
I myself noticed the symbolism of blue used within it. As we all know, that blue can be a representation of mental health awareness. It can be um, like chronic fatigue, drunk driving, like all kinds of symbolism, even to the LGBT flag, where blue is represented in there as well. Um, so the question would be the symbolism of blue, um, or even with the insect bug character repeating. Has anybody ever mentioned um, this for its meaning when it comes to like critics that correlate to your story performance?
Miigwech. People have, I've had that question come up once or twice where they've brought up the repetition of the word blue. Um, my first answer is it means all of those things. Yes, 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 because that's what you got from it, right? My other answer is as well as there, the initial response was because um, and this is like a deep cut that doesn't make any sense, but the original impetus was when I was growing up, my grandparents, their floor was a blue cement. And there was some trauma that I experienced in that with that floor. And so the way that I was thinking about it was that her as a child had that same experience. And so she's seeing it's what she's seeing, it's what Manadunes is seeing. It's as if like as a baby, if she's sitting on this floor, that trauma is going to come for her, right? Like it's making its way to her, and I mean theoretically it's technically already inside of her, but the physical aspect of it, the idea of Manadunes getting closer and closer to her as she's growing up is sort of like the image that's happening, and the blue initially was because of the floor, but I also thought that for me, I think of water, I think of the moon, and the moon is brought up a few times, and the you know the feeling of water, of womb like things like symbolism, and the idea of ebb and flow is also in there, and so there's a lot. It means sort of all of those things, and the repetition for Manadunes was sort of like a tick. It's like when I think about like creatures having these and I don't want to I want to be careful about this because because I'm realizing now that when I'm saying this that this sounds ableist, and I don't want it to be like it's a Tourette's thing because that's not at all what it is. I wanted a cadence to this creature's voice um, that sort of made it as if it was trying to get through something, but it keeps getting stopped, right? That it's trying to move forward and it keeps getting stopped. And for me, I think that part of that has to do with this battle that's happening that we can sort of see between her and her ancestors and colonialism and addictions, that it's this constant sort of fight, and we can see it like when she's crawling and she's going in and out of the voice, right? So there's this constant battle going on all the time, and I think for me that's part of the reason why Manadunes has that sort of that cadence, that tick, that like repetition to its voice, is that it's really trying to push through, but we're resilient people, so we're going to keep stopping it from coming, right? So there's a little bit of battle in there.
Yeah, it's like it's like the ladybugs use their colors for camouflaging themselves,
Yeah.
maybe like most other insects and bugs, right? So that's that answers the question.
Yeah. Miigwech.
I'm just noticing that we're at 22 minutes past 7.
Oh,
I want to respect Yolanda and Ashley's time. Would you guys like to take a final question, or are you feeling perhaps
I'm okay.
yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna take one more. And so first, let me ask if the panelists in the room. Oh, I see Pauline. Pauline, I think that yours would be a very fitting last question. And I just want to acknowledge that there are a good number of questions that maybe we weren't able to get to, but we've seen them all, and I really want to thank everyone for their engagement and also just again for coming. It's been an honor to have you both with us and the show with us, and an honor to be able to share it with the community. Pauline.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this work with us. And the chat and the questions demonstrate how very much it reached so many people and moved many people. My question had to do with the presence of the Ojibwe language in the play as such a powerful thing. It appeared at moments of such tenderness between the mother and child, and I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate upon the use of the language and the particular places in which it was used.
Yeah, much for that. Yeah, this was the first play I wrote, and I wrote it before and during and after. No, during. I'm still in it. My cultural reclamation journey. I mean, I grew up on a reservation, but as I'm sure everyone knows, lots of things were taken from us, and so I didn't grow up specifically in my culture. I definitely didn't grow up around my language. My grandmother spoke Anishinaabemowin, but never to us. Her and her sisters would lock themselves in a room to speak it, and whisper it to each other because there was so much shame and so much assimilation on our reserve. And so, I had like a few words here and there, but like it wasn't anything. I had to do a lot of work to get to the point where I could incorporate language. But what I do remember was learning Twinkle Twinkle. I was in choir, in my church choir, and Twinkle Twinkle in Anishinaabemowin or Ojibwe at the time. I didn't have the language that was the language is called, but I remember learning that song, and that was like the only. Well, and I also learned O Canada and Ojibwe, which is problematic on so many levels. But yeah, I that was the only thing I learned, and so I had to look it up to remember it again. But I wanted to. That was important to me, the aspect of not fully understanding language and not fully being immersed in it. And so she also mentions, that the only time she learned any of it was through that song. And so I wanted to put it in so that she has an anchor, and the anchor was through her auntie, and through her auntie, singing to her and being with her and singing that song. And so she takes that song and she sings it to her daughter, and so it becomes this cultural anchor that she's able to remember in those moments and that she's able to connect to. And that language is a direct channel to our ancestors. So in those moments where she's able to access it, she's able to call in her ancestors to help her. And at the end, I feel like when she gets to that path, she's done some work, after her incarceration and after her journey, that she's done some work to come to this path to heal. And so she has a little bit more, she has some words that she can use. And so the last thing she says is, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my girl. I'm sorry." And so she's apologizing in her language. Yeah. So it was having some aspects of language was important to me, but I wanted to hold back as I was learning my language. I needed to hold back for this one because I don't think she was ready yet, and I as a playwright wasn't ready to incorporate as much language as I do now, in particular to my stories. So it was a little bit of both. Yeah.
Thank you, Yolanda. That was so beautiful. Wow. And like I worked with you on the show for like
I know.
um yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Um and for myself, I'm not Anishinaabe. I do not speak Anishinaabe Moen, but I'm Mohawk and I have not incorporated kind of any of my language into my work, which is weird.
It's not weird. I wouldn't say it's weird. I would say that that's like we're getting there, right? We're getting there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, totally getting there. But I mean like uh yeah. I'm getting there and I'm dreaming up projects and I do want to um dream a better dream.
Yeah.
That is what I will say.
I love you.
Really beautifully put, Ashley, and I think it's a really fitting place for us to close as well. Because this if this work is anything, it's a reminder that the creative energies of Indigenous performers, like both of you. I'm sorry. Apparently, my mail program has woken up. That's odd. Um, in any case, the show is a reminder that Indigenous folks creating for Indigenous folks is a huge part of the process we call decolonization. You have ownership over your stories and exploring your language, which is not a language that many settlers will be able to understand in the audience, but it's our job to remember that that's perhaps not for us. It's stories that you're speaking to one another with, and that's crucial. I want to thank everybody who's hung in with us. And I'm again so honored and grateful to have had the opportunity to talk with you both. I want to thank everyone in the space, both visible and invisible, and everyone whose labor went into making tonight a very successful showing. I've had someone in the Q&A did ask if there will be opportunities to see this again, and I wonder if you can take that away to Cole and think about how to
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think I might be done performing it. But I've said that before. I'm not gonna lie. I have said that before. But who knows? I don't know. We don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen in the future, right? And how we tell stories. So yeah. But I will say is that Bug is published, and so you can buy. Thank you. Yes, you can buy the book at anywhere where bookstores are online. Sirocco is the publishing company, so you can just Google it and you can find it out there, and it's like $15 or something like that. And yeah,
very expensive. And if you order it online from your local bookseller, it'll probably turn up faster than you think.
exactly. Always go with local. Buy local, buy Indigenous.
Done. All right. Thank you all so very, very much. Yes, I'm going to say, Josh, you have permission to end this webinar. And again, thank you for all of your good work and your beauty in this show, Yolanda. And thank you.
Miigwech.
All right.